trademark law, trade secret law, and then patent law. Copyright law protects authorship and expressions in a fixed form. So think literary works, musical works, motion pictures, sound recordings. It's things that an artist would create, like a book or a painting, even actually architectural works. So the design of a building, like the non-scientific structural components of it, whatever the exterior design is, would be covered by copyright. Then there is trademark law, which protects brands and sources of goods, and it's any name, symbol, or device, or then any combination thereof, used by someone to identify and distinguish his or her goods from those manufactured or sold by others, and to indicate the source of goods, even if that source is unknown. So here you want to think about, say, the name Google, the name Apple, UTSA Roadrunner. You can have colors that could be a trademark, say the pink on Owens Corning insulation. You even have musical notes could be a trademark. Think the bong 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 from NBC. That's actually a registered trademark. Then with trade secret law, it protects confidential information, information that's usually probable by being kept secret by the person. More specifically, it's formula, pattern, compilation, program, device, method, technique, or process that derives independent economic value from not generally being known to and not being ascertainable by proper means by someone else. And it has to be subject to the reasonable efforts to maintain that information as a secret. So here you think about the Coke secret formula is a trade secret. A salesperson's customer list who they call on regularly to make their sales would be a potential trade secret. And then what most people think about when they think about intellectual property is patent law. And patent law protects inventions. Specifically, a patent is a grant by the government of an exclusive right to make, use, offer to sell, and import a patented invention. Typically, people think about utility patents, which cover really just about anything, but for specific broad subject matter categories, articles, machines, compositions of matter, and methods. So really, what is a patent? I have quite a few applications and patents to pass around today. Basically, a patent is a document that explains what an invention is. And it consists of three basic parts. You've got your drawings, which illustrate what the invention is, and as many views as you can possibly think of, and as many different features that you can possibly show in a drawing. You've got a detailed description or a specification that explains the drawings in excruciating detail, and then explains any other variations that might be captured by the invention or might be part of the invention. And then the most important part are the claims. And the claims are basically just a single sentence long that defines what the invention is. It defines the essential features of the invention. And that's actually where most patents make a lot of their money, is by being able to draft quality claims. So then there are two general types of patent attorney, or two general areas of law you can go into with patent, or if you have an engineering degree and you're doing patent law. You can be a litigator, or you can be a patent prosecutor. Now, litigators are the attorneys that represent clients in court. They represent inventors or companies that are fighting over whether or not a particular product infringes a patent. And the way a product infringes a patent is that it includes all of the specific features that are defined in that claim. Then there are the patent prosecutors, which is what I do. And patent prosecutors work to actually get a patent application drafted and then get the grant from the government for that patent. And I typically spend my weeks sort of divided into two main categories: patent preparation and then patent prosecution. In patent preparation, you get to work with the inventors to understand what the invention is. You have to understand the science behind what it is they're doing. You have to understand the technical details, how things are supposed to work. You have to help the inventors think beyond the specific things of whatever they've actually invented to try to figure out what other embodiments or what other variations might be included in what they've invented. And then we draft all that into this patent application and we file it with the patent office, typically the US Patent Office. And what happens there is the patent office has a huge core of what they call examiners, and their whole sole job is to research through prior publication documents, usually patents, to find out whether or not someone else has already invented what you've invented or what you think you've invented. And then where my role comes in is once they find whatever it is they want to find, or say the reason why they don't think we can have a patent, I then spend a lot of time arguing with the examiners saying, hey, look, no, you misunderstood the science here, you misunderstood the law in this case. This is why we actually preserve the patent for this patent application. So why did I, or how did I end up in patent law? I do have an engineering degree, and I really enjoyed engineering in college. I love getting to solve problems in concrete ways. I love getting to work with my hands and do like a lot of the integrated do in engineering school. I love getting to see the broad range of technology that you get to see in engineering school. When I graduated, I went to work for an HVAC design construction company, and I got pigeonholed really quickly into designing model lease spaces where you're designing the air handling systems for to keep those places cool. And while it's an interesting thing and it was a lot of fun, I wanted to experience more of engineering, more technology. So I did a little research and decided patent law would be the thing for me. And the reason why I like patent law is because you do get a broad exposure to a lot of different technology. In the 13 years I've been practicing, I've gotten to work on 3D TV technology. I've gotten to work on a lot of oil and gas equipment, and now I do a lot of work in the medical device space. And it's great because you get to work directly with the inventors. You get to work directly with the people who are coming up with these great ideas. You get to work with them when they're at the moment of joy over what they've done and what their experience and how they see the problem that they've solved and how it's going to help the world. And you get to try to help give them the tools that are going to help them bring that into reality in the world. And really the nice thing about being a patent attorney is that the only limitation as to what you can do or what technology you can be exposed to is your ability to go out and get clients that practice in that area. So if I'm working primarily in medical devices now, if I wanted to work for a solar engineering company that produces energy through photovoltaic cells, I can go out and find that client, and I can go start working for that client and bring that technology space to my area. I attorneys and patent attorneys more specifically give inventors and creators the tools to profit off their genius and hard work. It allows smaller and newer companies to get a chance to get funding and potentially compete against the big guys. It's why companies like KCI here in San Antonio, which is one of our large clients, when they first brought their wind duct systems to market, no one had done it before, and no one had thought of it before. But once it was on the market, it was something that's relatively easy to copy. But the patents that we were able to get for KCI prevented some other companies like Smith & Nephew and Stryker from coming in and pushing them out of the market before they were able to actually get off the ground. Similarly, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Lucid Motors. They developed a new electric car that has a range of over 500 miles, longest range of any electric car. Well, they're a smaller company, and the patents that they've gotten on that battery technology is going to allow them the opportunity to actually bring the car to market before without getting pushed out by someone like Tesla or by Toyota or Ford, somebody like that. And then finally, as a patent attorney, you do get to do some international law. A lot of the patents that we file in the United States, we turn around and file in Europe, in Japan, and in China. So you're getting to work with attorneys in foreign countries, and you're getting to learn about foreign law systems and how they value and how they view technology. So it's actually a pretty good time to get into the practice of patent law. Currently, there are only 34,000 to 45,000 presently practicing patent attorneys. And that's actually only about 6% of the total number of lawyers in the United States. And what's interesting about that is that the number of practicing patent attorneys is decreasing. There are more people who are in the senior levels than there are in the junior levels. Discuss a lot of different reasons for that. But basically, those senior people are starting to retire. But the demand for patent protection is not decreasing. For example, the U.S. Patent Office itself only sees over 500,000 patent application filings per year. So the demand for filing for the practice of patent law is increasing, and it's a good time to get into it because, hey, the demand's going to be there for quite some time. Lastly, just some advice for you guys before we open up for the question period. You obviously, if you want to go into patent law, get an engineering or science degree, but I think you all are already doing that. And then law school is still focused really heavily on your grades and your LSAT scores. So study hard and do the best you can. And then take some time to learn to write. Most legal communication is done through in a written format. So even if you are practicing before a court or you're a litigator, most of what you are arguing about in court is something you already put down in some sort of paper filing or paper document at some point. So if you have, you can find some time. I know engineering is tough. But if you can find some time to take a professional writing course or two, that would help you a lot, even if you don't necessarily go into law. And then if you do decide to go to law school, find one in a location where you want to practice, and hopefully a law school that is close to a industry that will be supported by your engineering degree. That will help you a lot in terms of getting jobs after law school. Again, law firms like to see good grades, so do the best you can in law school. And then make friends and stay in touch with those friends. Those people are going to be the ones who you're connecting with later on to either change jobs, get work for, give work to. That networking is really crucial. And then finally, even if you don't decide to go into patent law, it's not something you want to do, go out and network, do informational interviews. Most people will want to talk to you, but you have to pick up the phone and actually reach out to them. I have students call me from some of the universities in Dallas area all the time and say, hey, I'm interested in patent law. Can I talk to you? We go to lunch to learn about what the practice involves, what you have to do on a day-to-day basis. And most people, no matter what the industry is, are willing to actually do that. They're willing to give you even if it's just 5 to 10 minutes on the phone. And those connections will help you later on in your career. Being able to do that, being able to talk with people will help you a lot in your future career, no matter whether it's in law or whether it's in engineering. So with that, happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
So where do you do your work? Is it in San Antonio?
I'm sorry, we're hearing aids, so I have a hard time hearing sometimes.
Where do you do your work? Is it here in San Antonio?
So our work is, I'm based in Dallas, but our two biggest clients are actually here in San Antonio. It's KCI and the Southwest Research Institute.
Okay. So you work at the Southwest Research Institute?
So we work with Southwest Research Institute has a large legal staff, and we work with the primary intellectual property attorney there to do a lot of licensing work. So when they develop their new technologies, they have other attorneys that are actually doing the patents. But then we're writing the contracts and the agreements that Southwest Research Institute has with other institutions. So they might be sharing the technology with them or getting technology from those other companies to develop these products.
You brought up how you have contact with people outside of the US, right? So like when you file a patent in the United States, it stays in the United States. So what's stopping somebody from another region copying?
Well, your patent is just covered, the US patent just covers the United States.
Right.
What you can do, and what we do a lot of, is take the same applications and we'll file them in Europe, which will then cover Europe. You can file them. There's no limitation to where you can file your patents. Most countries have some sort of patent office. The rules for what they will find patents differ. But you really, if you want to, what most companies do is identify the biggest markets, and they'll file their patent applications there and not really worry too much about some of the other smaller countries where they don't necessarily make a lot of sales. And you're right, it's really good to someone else. And so say you file a patent application in the United States and Europe. So you're covered there for the two big markets, but someone in South Africa could copy it, but they can't import it into the United States. They can't import it then into Europe. You have to go to the ITC and get an order blocking the importation of those devices. So it would protect your borders here, but you have to go to each individual country.
We had a question come in online. If you had a special program or rates for college students, and also if it was okay to just share your contact.
Oh yeah, great. So special program or rates
for college students that are.
We don't. I know a lot of law schools have. Especially, I know the Warren Law School there, the SMU in Dallas, they have and actually Texas A&M does as well over in Fort Worth. They have a patent law clinic where they will work with people on a pro bono basis. So I would recommend contacting those two law schools to get help if you are worried about patents.
Thank you.
And actually, I think St. Mary's is here in San Antonio.
Yes,
they may actually have a clinic program as well that you can reach out to with someone local.
Yeah, on that note, so we have at the end of our engineering program, students will have to complete some type of design projects. So we've had a lot of students who have had good and things that they've come up with and have considered getting patents. Do you have any advice for the students as they do that, to take those next steps to start getting towards patenting anything you've made?
So I guess what I recommend doing is, first off, go to Google Patents, patents.google.com, and use a keyword searching to find out what else is out there. The Google actually has put together a pretty good database, not just the US patent applications, but international patent applications as well. To try to find out what else other people have invented that might be close to what you're doing, and how start thinking about how what you've done is different. And then I would talk to, the most, I should say most, a lot of people like I would, a lot of people in my firm will talk to people just for free for an hour or two and try to help people along on their specific issues. I try to help point them in the right direction if we can't actually help them.
And I looked it up, St. Mary's does have
Okay.
a clinic here. They say they take a limited number of cases in specific practice areas, but if you all are looking to
Yeah,
contact.
so I would reach out to the St. Mary, or if you're up in the Houston area, I know University of Houston has a good clinic program as well, so.
I have another question, and I almost don't even know how to kind of ask it, but as far as like federal patent attorneys, like is there like a big difference between like a private patent attorney and like a federal one? Is there like a difference between those, or is it just all private?
So, if I think I understand your question correctly, all patent attorneys go through a patent bar exam where they take an exam with the United States Patent and Trademark Office that allows them to be a registered patent attorney. I think the patent attorneys or the patent examiners, I think would be what you're referring to at the patent office. Their job is specifically to try to keep people from getting patents. And conversely, people who are in private practice who work for companies, there's no real difference in terms of education. It's just a different function. Our job is to try to figure out how to get the patents, and they're just they would say not to let you have a patent, but to make sure that nothing that is not new is patented.
Okay.
Got it, 2-part question. So on average, how much does it cost? And also what's the process timeline? Like how long does it take?
Depends. There's a pretty wide range. Depending on the technology area, it can be anywhere between, if you go to a law firm, between $5,000 and $25,000 from the start of the process to when you actually get your patent. It's just going to depend on how complex it is. If you have some sort of electrical engineering project, with a lot of circuitry, a lot of diagrams, a lot of algorithmic embodiments, it's going to take a lot more than if it's just a simple new buckle system for a watch or something like that. In terms of how long it takes, it varies. Usually it's going to take at least 2 years, can be upwards of 5 to 10. The patent office is actually a little slow place, some types of inventions, so if you come up with a new business method of some kind, those things really don't go through the patent office anymore. So if you file that application, it's going to sit there for a really long time. They try to do, they want to get them out in under 3 years, but it will just depend on the technology.
Where did you go for law school?
Law school? I went to SMU in Dallas. Yeah, my wife was working in the area, so she was able to support me.
Nice.
It's very important for me.
It's checking for,
Yeah.
When you made that switch from engineering and deciding you wanted to go to law school and trying to get into law school, was there anything in particular you did or advice you have for people that might consider making that switch? Because I know you said you need good grades, you need to do well on the LSAT.
Yeah.
Did you get any other type of experience or that helped you get in?
I talked, my wife worked a couple of some of the people that she worked with, their spouses were attorneys, and so I talked with them. But really, I got a couple books from the bookstore on studying for the LSAT and did a lot of LSAT prep. Other than that, I don't know that I have. I mean, there was anything else special that I did, but it would, I would recommend maybe taking an LSAT prep course if you have the time and the opportunity to do so. Because it really is the better your LSAT score and the better your grades, the better the law school and the better the scholarships that you'll get for going to law school. And since law schools are pretty expensive right now, scholarships are really helpful.
You guys.
I was gonna say, this is more of a personal question to me and not so much about engineering, but my daughter actually is really thinks she wants to be an attorney. And so I've been trying to feel out different people about undergraduate degrees she should pursue. Obviously, you came from engineering, so you had a great backup plan, even if law school wouldn't have worked out, right?
Right.
But are there specific things that you would recommend that, you know, what are, that really set you apart as far as being able to get into law school? Or is it really pretty general and it's really all about that LSAT and not so much about what your undergraduate degree was?
I think it's less about what your undergraduate degree is, although I will say a lot of law schools will have a preference for engineering and science degrees because there's a premium that we can charge for our services as we get out. So they think, oh, hey, you can be able to give more money to us when you graduate.
Right.
But really being able to write well is, so whatever course of study you want to take, that will teach you how to communicate well in written form and communicate persuasively. And then to analyze the written word is really, really helpful.
There was a question online about if there are opportunities open with the company you work with or a website that they can check out.
So we do clerkships for law students. We'll bring in first year and second year law students during the summer to learn about what we do and actually do the work that we do on a daily basis. We do a lot of our hiring through the Loyola Law School internship program. It's a big conference they do every year in July that's almost exclusively to intellectual property law.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll say that.
Can you describe like on an average day what you do?
That's actually what.
That's the question.
Wow.
So on an average day, a lot of it, what I do is sit at a computer and write. I pick up the phone a lot and talk with the caller and if I have questions about what it is that we do. So what I'll probably do tomorrow is I have a new patent application to write. I have a form that we give out to our inventors. They fill in, try to give us some basic information about what they've invented. So I'll go through that and try to give a basic understanding of what the invention is. Then I'll call them, or usually it's a group of inventors. So I'll set up a meeting to talk with them and walk them through the figures, walk them through all the different, or have them walk me through all the information that they've put down and try to ask them as many questions as possible about what the important features of what they've invented are. And then I'll turn around and after that's done, I'll sit down and start drawing for a little bit and trying to figure out which views of whatever it is that they've invented I need, what different aspects we need to put down in an illustration. And I'll probably spend the next 3 or 4 hours writing about those illustrations. On days when I'm not drafting patent applications, but I'm prosecuting them, we get what are called office actions from the patent office. And the office action is a report that basically says, based on what you define in your claims, this is why you can't do a patent. And you then pull all the documents they've cited in that office action, you read through all that information and try to understand what their examiner is saying and then why the examiner is wrong. And then you spend all the couple hours drafting a response to that. Either amending your claims, adding additional features of your invention, or just making arguments as to why the examiner got it wrong.
Hence the persuasive writing classes that are needed.
Yeah, you spend a lot of time on the desk, spend a lot of time writing.
Yeah.
Now I have 2 questions. So first, can you patent your own?
Yeah, you can patent your own. In fact, if you wanted to, you can represent yourself with a patent office without having to get a patent attorney.
Okay, and then also I wanted to know about what kind of because you mentioned that you did work for oil and gas devices. What kind of devices did you?
So I did a lot of subsea drilling equipment. Particularly, don't blank on the name now, but basically subsurface tools that are these big cylindrical objects. They're big, but they consist of just various valves and clamping mechanisms that and threaded tools on these long chains of pipe. They run down into a hole, run down thousands of meters down underground, and they'll twist it a certain way. It'll actuate a certain lever to cause some action to happen. Yeah, what they call downhole. They'll twist it at a few degrees in every direction, and they'll pump fluid down it because it'll actuate some other mechanism, some other device that they're going to run down in the hole, or action that they need to take in the well.
What company was that?
That was for Betco Grid. I think now it's GE Oil and Gas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They're based in Houston.
Nothing else online yet.
Can you talk about, so like, that, when you did make that certificate, I want to go to law school now. Kind of how you made that decision, like what got you interested in that? So, because that's like, you know, it's kind of a jump to make in a lot of times people don't really have that experience or have that kind of thing that really got them interested in it. So like, what was that like? And how did you make that decision?
So like I said, I did, well, no, I felt like I was pigeonholed, and I didn't want to stick with what I was doing. The friends that I had that were working for some of the other, big companies like Lockheed Martin and stuff there in Fort Worth, it sounded like they were doing something similar, or they were stuck just working on a single project, not getting really to see the whole scope of what the company was doing. And I started reading and trying to learn about careers that I thought might be different from that. I think in hindsight, the thing I like about patent law, I think I could have found, had I stayed in engineering, we probably had to do a little more self-discovery about what types of careers would have gotten that for me. But at the time, it's, I talked with the attorneys that I talked with, it sounded like patent law was so that really was a motivation to get in this move.
One question. Yeah, so I don't know where I heard this, but so does it have like a time limit to where like somebody could kind of copy it, or like it's just like no one could ever copy it?
There is a time limit. What you get a patent for is 20 years from your filing date. So 20 years from the day that you file your application with the patent office. That can be extended a little bit depending on how long it takes to get through the patent office. If they delay the process too long, then they'll give you an additional term beyond that 20 years. The law is 20 years. So. And typically that's true for most foreign jurisdictions as well. So if you go into Europe, it's going to be 20 years. Japan, China, it's the same thing.
I know you said that, so you work with like Swery and some of the other, do you feel like that's usually where like people end up patenting things as kind of from like within larger organizations, or do you kind of work with a lot of individuals as well who might have like come up with their own design?
Mainly due to cost, we don't work with a whole lot of individual inventors. You do see a lot of individual inventors come to the door. So there are people out there that are coming up with great ideas, but just due to the cost of working with a patent attorney, they tend to go elsewhere or tend to go to programs. But there's no limitation to that it has to be someone from a large institution.
And do you think like, so because like, yeah, like you're saying, it can be really costly and really difficult to get a patent like from more individuals. So do you think, do a lot of people then tend to like try to pitch it to companies to try to get them to kind of maybe consider designing this or working with this, and then they go get patents, or is that not really kind of how it works?
You run the risk. So if you do that without having something on file with the patent office, you run the risk of having it stolen, and you can do it under what they call a non-disclosure agreement, which I'm sure you'll have heard about. And that does provide you some protection. The other thing you can do is file a provisional application, which basically is sort of it's like a pared down application that describes what you've invented, has a couple of illustrations. That gives you about 12 months that you can then go out and pitch it to different companies, try to get them to license it from you and then take over prosecution of it. So that is an avenue you can pursue if you're interested in that.
Of our students in here, I know you all are a bunch of entrepreneurs. Who is thinking about that you would be creating a new device technique? Okay.
I'm hoping to.
Hoping
Yeah.
to.
I hope you do. Yeah, that's the great thing about Pathway is getting to see, some of the really wonderful things people develop.
How many times how often do you think, does that kind of come across where people are trying to patent something, it's like, no, that already exists? Is that, I feel like that's probably really often because it is so hard to really span what else is out there.
It tends to happen with less sophisticated inventors, people who are not, who haven't had engineering training. I mean, once you've gone into the engineering field, you tend to get a good idea of what's out there and where to go to look for ideas. You do get a lot of people who come in with, I've had some perpetual motion type machines, people who think they come up with a way to develop unlimited energy. It doesn't really work like that, So.
What about like, 'cause right now I'm working at a manufacturing company and sometimes I'm like, I wish they had a different way of like, maybe like automating like their production floor.
Mhm.
And do you ever, is that ever like a possibility, like, oh, like I want to make like a piece of equipment for a company, but is that like, would I be considered right, like an individual? Like,
So you are
or-
working with somebody?
Right now, I'm just an assembler. I'm
Okay.
not like in the, what do you call, like the design process.
Right.
We're not involved in that.
It depends on what your agreement with somebody says. In the United States, you as an inventor, you own your intellectual property unless you assign it away to somebody else or someone else. So if your employment agreement with that manufacturing company says that they own whatever intellectual property you develop while you're working there, whatever idea you should develop while you're working there,
Yeah.
then it transfers over to them. But if your agreement doesn't say anything like that, then you own it, then you can go out and develop it and then pitch it back and say, hey, look, I've got built this great thing. You really need this. It would help you out. It would save you X amount of dollars and speed up your production process and speed up your distribution process. So it just depends.
Yeah.
I know if you are in the UK or I think France are both like this, that whoever you're working for automatically owns whatever you come up with. And there are some other situations where you develop something that's while you're working for someone, but it's not specifically related to what the company does, then it's yours regardless of what your agreement says. So it really depends.
Yeah. Quit, develop it, so that we get hired back. I said quit, develop it, patent it, and then ask for my job.
Online. Yeah. I just got back on them, so.
Everyone wants to.
Yeah.
Or it's well.
I have a lab to go to.
Okay.
But I appreciate talking to us today.
Yeah, definitely, that's.
Thank you.
Like I said, I think you're gonna share my contact information, so if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask.
You know, we would love to have you if you're available. Every semester, I should say, at the end of the semester, we have a showcase of our senior design projects. And so our students spend, 2 semesters, you've been through senior design, obviously as an engineer, and it's just a big showcase event, but we have cash prizes, we have judges come through, review projects. It seems like with all your background and your experience, I think hopefully something maybe you would enjoy seeing some of the neat things that our students come up with, but also your expertise and giving them feedback.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. We actually just did a hackathon event there in Dallas, right? Thanks for that. It was really interesting. It's always great to see what people come up with.
Yeah.
How you come up with different solutions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are any of y'all in senior design? No, we're starting.
Is this your last semester or?
No, it's my first semester.
First.
at senior.
Okay. Gotcha.
I'm design now.
So in the spring, we'll be showcasing.
But we're doing a project with Spirit, and so they have a project and they're patenting it right now.
Gotcha.
What's like what's a pattern or project?
So I did have to sign an NDA for it, but it's a robotics project. That's all I could do.
Good, just keep it where you need it. Yeah.
We
Good, good.
don't want to trap you.
Opportunity was already like.
So actually, it was a friend of ours works there, so I asked them if they had any projects that were available, and so he kind of introduced me to it. It's like, yeah, and so you're doing a few papers of the car, so we took on the project. So that's kind of why I was asking, like, how long does it take? Because we have to kind of get approved by the professors. Like, I can't tell them it because they just sign it off. So they're still filing the patent.
That's an interesting situation for
Yeah.
students to be in. Yeah, and that happens with Tech Symposium a lot too, because a lot of the times the projects that our students are working on, the majority are industry projects. They're not something the students just came up with. They're working with the company and have mentorship and the company sponsoring. But then they're required to showcase, but a lot of times we do run into this NDA issue and we have to abide by that. Yeah.
And so how does that work with like so for the faculty, like, so how are you gonna get the project to does the faculty then have to sign an NDA too?
So what happened was, I asked my contact there, like, we told them we have to present it to the professors. So their team wrote a document for us that we could show the professors.
Yeah.
And it had just the minimal information they needed. And so we kind of had that, and then we wrote our own proposal, and we gave them both of the documents to approve. That's kind of.
Does that sound legally sound?
I mean, they wrote it, they're like, you can show this to the professors, so I'm like, all right, I'm just send this to them.
If they're happy with it.
Have you ever gone to the showcase?
I haven't done the showcase, man.
You need to go.
I know. Did you not hear me trying to recruit him as a judge?
Isn't there something, even for the ones that are not industry sponsored, there's some like, it might belong to the university. It might-
Yeah, we're always kind of working out IP issues between the university and the student. The general rule of the university is that students own their own IP, but there are situations, and I'm definitely not the person qualified to get into much detail on that, but as you all move into senior design, you definitely want to know, and the companies need to know about the IP, and the university does have ways to work through that. I think as far as universities go, UTSA is relatively reasonable to work with as far as outside entities and IP, better than some other institutions that I know that I've worked for where it was really problematic. So, but there's a lot you want to make sure you know when you're going into that.
Yeah, I've not done a lot of work with the first, but I know I've heard that the bureaucracy on site at some can be really difficult to get through.
It is. Prohibits a lot of businesses from wanting to do work with, and a lot of times like R&D with our faculty, which is, you know, what we want, and sometimes that,
Kind of on a personal second, but so you talked about, you know, when you made that decision to go to law school, you kind of make yourself pigeonholed within like the field you're going to, and you know, maybe you could have done some things to like explore more field options. I guess can you talk a little bit more about that, like what perhaps maybe like what you thought might be pigeonholed, or how people can maybe avoid that, maybe research that they can do to better inform their decisions as they go to the industry?
I think if you're going into an industry, like just you can put yourself out there, you know, ask, volunteer for different projects, volunteer for things that are not what you're currently doing. Just try to get yourself like exposed in some way that you can get noticed by the people who might have a chance to try different type of projects. So, yeah, it takes a lot of, I know a lot of us are introverts, I am. It takes kind of stepping out of that box a little bit to get out and make the connection to get to where you're going.
So if I'm working on something as I'm making it, can I call you and ask you? If this is working?
Definitely. I'm happy to talk about it.
I'm gonna do that. My project is for like starting in the spring and then should be done by next December. So, okay, I'm gonna email you.
And so you said there's like a place on Google that you can search. Is there any like, how do you navigate that or how do you get there or what do you, any search
it's-
recommendations?
It's just patents.google.com and your typical Google search bar. You know, if you don't get any hits with your initial search, there is a after you do that, there's a box on the side that lets you search by assignee. So if you know the name of the company or the name of the holding company that's holding their IP, you can find really you can find all their patents that way. So, and there's a way on the USB the website as well, but it's just not as user friendly as Google's.
Yes.
There's also pizza.
Pizza.
Hang out, Google Network, that's part of the name of the event. So.
And like I said, like, if y'all have any further questions that are on or like anything you're curious about, just let me know. I'll answer any questions.
It's very informative.
Thank you so much.
Let's go from my computer. Thank you for everyone who's here online too, for being with us. I'm sorry we can't hand you a slice of pizza.
No, I really appreciate this. I appreciate your questions or your questions.
How often do you work in Houston?
In Houston, not so much anymore. When I was doing a lot of the oil and gas work, I was actually working with a law firm in Houston, so I was based there. Then when I moved back to Dallas, I kind of got away from that a little bit.
Grab some pizza, y'all.